Hello, everybody. It is Sunday, March 20th, 2022. I'm Ben Super, that's Chad Cummings, and we are the Squawk podcast, where we break down all news related to the Baltimore Ravens. Chad, how are you doing today, sir?
I am doing good, man. Sunday fun day. Been hanging out with the family, and now I'm ready to talk about a little bit of football. Fun time of the year.
We're going to talk about a lot of football because it's
true.
the first week of free agency, man. This was a wild week of moves, players going all over the place, some surprises, some good signings, one signing that I'm not too stoked with the Ravens, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit. We're going to start with Ravens-specific news, and then, of course, we're going to address the elephant in the room, which is the $230 million guaranteed to Deshaun Watson. Talk about a guy who was in one place like not even 3 months ago where we all were like, oh my God, like what is even going to happen to this dude? And now Cleveland's breaking him off with $230 million. That is just wild to me. Obviously, Baker's moving on. He's going somewhere else. And Deshaun Watson has been exceptional over his career. So obviously it's not a good thing, I guess, that he's coming to the AFC North. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later because we're going to get to the Ravens news first. So I want to go over the signings that occurred during the week. Marcus Williams from New Orleans, 5 years, $70 million with $37 million guaranteed, which everyone knows is the important number when it comes to NFL contracts, right? This is an awesome move. I love everything about this move. A lot of people have been bringing up in chat rooms and other places that I've checked online about how he was the defender responsible for the Minneapolis Miracle, where Stephon Diggs, fellow UMD alumnus, he just completely whiffed on the tackle. And then he goes and he scores. Was that in overtime? I think it was in overtime, too.
I can't remember. I know it was a walk-off playoff win.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of shit talking from the Ravens. Well, not from the Ravens, but from some Ravens fans who kind of bring that play up, which I think is absolutely ridiculous because that was 4 years ago. And this guy has been balling out ever since. He's going to be 26 this year, which is a lot. It's a lot younger than the safety free agency signings we've had in the past, right? Like I think of Eric Weddle. Eric Weddle, I think, was like 31 when we signed him and picked him up. Mm-hmm. He's a long-term solution at a position where, like, frankly, we sucked this year when it came to generating turnovers. We talked about it in the podcast during the year, where it just seemed like we were stopping guys and we were forcing fourth downs, but we weren't turning the ball over. And all Marcus Williams does is turn the ball over. So what do you think of this move? Do you think it's too much money? A lot of people have been saying, we dedicated 37 mil at least. I don't see it as a problem at all. I see it as a solution. I think it's one of those sneaky good picks. What do you think?
Well, to be honest, when I saw it pop up on my phone, I was like, who the hell is Marcus Williams? The biggest thing that stuck out was how young he was. I think he's younger than when we drafted Hayden Hurst with Lamar. I think Hayden Hurst was 26. So the fact that we got a young guy that has 5 years of experience playing in a position that we needed help with because we were giving up a lot of big plays last year. And he also turns the ball over, which we, lacked last year as well. A lot of the guys that know a lot more football than me were talking about how it's a good signing. And it doesn't surprise me either with the position because we really take pride in that position. We've had the best, in my opinion, and a lot of Ravens fans' opinion, the best free safety to ever play the game on our team for 10 plus years. So, and then after that, we signed Eric Weddle to free agency contract. We signed Earl Thomas to a free agency contract. We put a lot of money into this position, and we really covet this free safety position. And if it can give us, the flexibility of having someone who can play deep and stop those big plays as well as generate turnovers, that really fixes a lot of problems we had last year with a lot of big play threats against our against our defense and not turning the ball over like we're used to. So I'm excited about it. The money, from what I heard, the money is pretty decent for a young safety like that who is pretty well sought after. He was on the NFL Network's top 10 of free agencies available when the free agency started. So I'm sure he was behind Tyrann Mathieu in the safety position. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm happy we got him over Tyrann just because of the age difference, So I'm cool with it. I trust Eric DeCosta.
I'm going to give you some stats. Some of this stuff boggles my mind. So Marcus Williams has had 15 interceptions over the past 5 seasons. The Ravens safeties combined over that same period had 19 interceptions, meaning he only got 4 less for all of the safety play that we've had since pretty much he entered the league. I mean, the Minneapolis Miracle happened when he was a rookie.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm willing to cut a guy some slack if he makes one bad play, and now he's going to be known his entire career for it. That doesn't seem to be very fair. He allowed 11 receptions on 25 targets and no touchdowns as the nearest defender in coverage. What about this? Is a slam dunk pick, and we talked about how safety play was not great for a variety of reasons. Deshaun Elliott always has a history of injury. It just seems like this was the right move to make. And the Ravens here, the past couple of years, they always seem to make a move that I don't think is like the big need at the time. And yet it always seems to pay off like way later down the road. Like when they got J.K. Dobbins at the start of the second round, in not the 2 drafts ago, I was just like, that's like an interesting pick. I don't know, though. We've got Mark Ingram, and then it turns out Mark Ingram, he's over 30. We get a younger guy in there, and it fills that role, and we can keep the train rolling. This feels like one of those signings.
Yeah.
And I'm really stoked for it. I think this dude is really talented. He has no idea about E.D. Reed, boy, the best safety you ever seen, boy. They asked him about that in, I guess, like his intro interview or whatever, and they were like, oh, do you know about Ed Reed? He's like, nah, not really. I like that even more. It's just a guy who's going to forge his own path, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
I don't have a problem with a dude being like, oh, yeah, I mean, I'm sure I've heard of him, but he ain't shit compared to me. I'm me, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I got from it anyway. That's awesome. It's a great move. I really like it. I don't like it as much as the next move that we made. We signed Morgan Moses, right tackle for the New York Jets. 3 years, $15 million, no guaranteed money. This is my favorite move that we've made out of the 3 that we're going to talk about. This one is my absolute favorite. We needed a right tackle because Alejandro Villanueva, Ronnie Stanley's injury kind of threw a wrench in what that line was supposed to be because we moved Villanueva from right tackle to left. The only other right tackle on our roster is Juwan James, and he's coming off of an ACL tear, I believe. So we got this guy for basically $5 million a year, and he's probably a guy that would have been bought by a team for $8 million a year, and you would have been like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense for his production. He's an answer at right tackle, and even if he doesn't totally work out, he at least provides depth there. He got pigeonholed on a New York Jets offensive line that, let's face it, has not been good historically speaking. He ranks really high in a lot of these right tackle categories on Pro Football Focus. I don't know. What do you think of this one? This is my favorite one. I feel like we got a discount on a guy who really addresses one of the needs that we have.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely, already the age difference between him and Villanueva is already a upgrade, Yeah. He's a ginormous dude. He's huge. And that's a great thing to see in your right tackle. And like you said, we have Juwan James as a back. I mean, like you said, he's coming off a season-ending injury from last year. He didn't even get to get on the field last year at all. But he was a great player himself before his injury. So the fact that we have him coming off an injury and Morgan Moses, who has played really well last year for the Jets on a bad team. I mean, I feel like, and like you said, for really cheap, $5 million a year, that's really good value for a right tackle. That is very durable and, played every game, every snap last year. So it's an upgrade. It's an upgrade from last year. So that's a plus, and we didn't have to break the bank at all. So that's great. Eric
Yeah.
DeCosta making another great move.
Yeah, I think so too. This is my favorite one because now the right side of the line is completely, we're done there, right? We've got Kevin Zietler playing at guard. We've got now Morgan Moses playing at right tackle.
Yep.
Obviously, the news that Bradley Bozeman took off for the Carolina Panthers, we still have things that we need to address. I think we should pick up another tackle. Even I love the Morgan Moses thing, but maybe with the 10 picks that we have in the draft, we pick up another guy.
So we have Ronnie Stanley hopefully coming back. Zeitler. We lost Bozeman, but we have Macari and Cologne that can both play center. Macari had some snapping issues a couple years back. Cologne is he has some experience, but he played decent. Ben Cleveland coming into his second year at right guard potentially, and also Phillips, who is like a guard tackle hybrid, so he can fill both of those spots. And this is only his second or third year. And then we have Moses, right tackle, and we have Dwan James at right tackle. So, yeah, I feel like it's something that we definitely address, but I especially the guard center position, someone that can be versatile there. But I think right tackle, I think it's maybe with our 10 picks, maybe someone later in the draft. But I don't think it's like a huge priority. I feel like if we do go offensive line early in the draft, it should be more like a guard center potentially. Eric DeCosta is always, most of the time he's always going to go best player available. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think maybe later rounds, you pick a right tackle that you really like in the draft, right? Like you don't have to necessarily address that position right away. And I think you're right. With Bozeman leaving and Macari sliding over to center, I'd rather have a guy that's a little more natural at that position.
Yeah.
You build chemistry with Lamar over time and then just have that completely locked down. Good for Bozeman for getting his money, by the way. Yeah. You know what's been kind of strange? Like the cornerback market has not been great in this free agency, right? I mean, J.C. Jackson moved from New England to the Chargers.
That was the biggest. That was a huge signing, for them.
Corners aren't really moving around a whole lot, and they're not paying them a whole lot of money. The J.C. Jackson is obviously like, he got broken off, and he absolutely deserves it with the way he played in New England. But there just hasn't been a whole lot of movement. And Anthony Averett is now gone.
It just surprised me that they both only got 1 year prove-it deals. And then the rest of our free agents class still haven't, made any deals yet. The tampering period started on Monday, so there's been 7 days almost of people being able to talk to players. We haven't re-signed any of our free agents yet. Mm-hmm. And we've only lost 2. So I was just surprised at that. I thought things would be moving a lot quicker. A lot of things. One thing I heard, which kind of makes sense, is that a lot of people were waiting for the Deshaun Watson thing to play out because there were so many teams involved. There was 4 teams involved. Any free agents potentially going to any of those 4 teams, well, include Houston, 5 teams involved into this situation. They're like, well, maybe I want to wait to see if Deshaun Watson goes there first, or they want to wait to see who has the available money for certain things. So. Now that that's set and done, we found out Friday afternoon, maybe things start picking up more. We have a lot of 3-4 cornerbacks on the field, so it's a lot less, 2 shutdown corners where those 2 guys get a lot of money. A lot of teams are rotating 4 guys, so it's more of like a committee type thing, and they're not putting as much money into it. So that might be why we're seeing, outside of the J.C. Jackson contract, kind of like a cheap cornerback market.
Cornerbacks are also the most athletic people on a football team. That's my personal opinion, right? Yeah. Like I understand it takes athleticism to huck a football 75 fucking yards or however long you can throw it. I get all that. But as far as just like athleticism in general,
Speed,
I feel like corners that's your most athletic position. So if you can get the most athletic guys on the field, maybe it sort of negates the athleticism that you see from guys like Patrick Mahomes, who can do like incredible things. If you feel like you have a guy who is more athletic than your safety, or you need to rest because a part of it is quarterbacks are just throwing the ball more than they ever have in NFL history, and it's only going to get more. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's just the way that the NFL is going.
Yeah,
and that's how it's going to be. You know what I mean?
And that's why you need three. And that's why you need 3 or 4 really good cornerbacks.
Right, because they're cycling. You'd have to cycle them out with the way that they're getting targeted throughout the games. I mean, look at Anthony Averett last season. Since we're talking about him, I mean, they targeted him a lot because they knew he's not the typical corner, and that's good football, and that's good for any sport that you play. It's good strategy. Let's get to the last guy, and then we're going to break down the Deshaun Watson stuff. This is a pick I didn't like so much, and the only reason I didn't like it was because we had Zadarius Smith back, like in the building. Conspiracy theory hat going on here. I think he saw what Von Miller was making with the Bills, because that was a massive contract that he signed. Yep. I think he took a look at those numbers, and then he looked at the Ravens, and he was like, okay, so if Von Miller is making this money, I should at least be making this.
Yeah.
And the deal that they had in place, I think the Ravens weren't willing to budge on it. I think maybe they knew that Michael Pierce was in their back pocket and they could get him back. And I think they let it go, and he let it go, and he went back. I think that's what happened.
He backed out. It was apparently a verbal agreement, and then he backed out of it. Gregory from Dallas, who went to Denver, who also pulled a switcheroo on Dallas. His big contract. So I'm sure he saw those numbers and he was like, oh, maybe never mind. But what is surprising is that most of the time that happens when another team is in his back pocket, like, oh, we're going to pay you more. But that doesn't seem to be the case because it's already been three or 4 days and he still hasn't signed anywhere. So maybe he took a calculated risk, it seems like. He was like, I'm going to wait it out. I'm not going to sign this Ravens contract and hope for something better, and nothing better has come yet. Or, I mean, he might look like an idiot if that happens. If he's like, oh, shit, I guess that's the best offer I'm going to get or something like that. But
yeah, but with his production in Green Bay, I thought he's pretty crucial to their defensive front there.
He played really well the three or 4 years he's been there, but he didn't play much last year, back injury, so that has something to do with it. So I don't know if another team is willing, if they trust that his back's better. Like, I don't know, but I'm just saying he hasn't signed anywhere. It's been 3 or 4 days since he's backed out of the contract. You would think, with the production he had, and I mean, he would have bounced back by now. I mean, he would have got an offer from another team that is better than what the Ravens were offering, but I guess not.
Now that he knows what Von Miller's making over there and what some of these other players have been going for, maybe he sits back and he says, okay, I'm gonna, if you want to pull me out of Green Bay, you know that I'm willing to go. Let's renegotiate a deal. Like, I don't think that the Ravens burnt any bridges. I just don't think that they came up with the same dollar amount that Zadarius Smith came up with. And I think that was something that was determined kind of by the market, as opposed to like him not wanting to come and play in Baltimore. Like, I don't think that's the case. But anywhere you go, regardless, and I know this is a Ravens fans podcast, but this is just real talk. Like, anywhere you go, you want to maximize your value. And in a sport where you don't have a whole lot of time to do that, maybe it behooves you to be a little more patient and see what other teams are willing to put together. Because everybody knows that the Ravens are up against the cap. I mean, I don't think it means as much as like ESPN makes it out to be, the salary cap, because I think that there are business people and there are, marketing people and executives that know how to manipulate cap room so you can make room for these guys. Like Deshaun Watson is the perfect example of this. It's like, yeah, he signed a $230 million guaranteed contract, but he's only getting $1 million paycheck for the first year. Mm-hmm. So they stretch that stuff out over time. Like, everybody looks at these numbers and their eyes like pop out from their head. And it's like, these are very smart people that run these organizations.
Yeah. And that's strategic, the $1 million next year, because they're expecting he gets suspended. Only $1 million of his $230 is going to be next year. So if you're going to suspend him for however many games next year, it's only coming from a $1 million total versus whatever 23 divided by 5 would have been,
Right. Yeah. No,
So I'm sure his agent was like, hey, we're expecting a suspension. So if you want us, give us only $1 million, or, make the first year as little as possible. So he's losing less money. When it comes to the phantom Za'Darius Smith
Oh, yeah.
signing. I mean, he was the biggest one that even when I heard the rumors that he was probably going to be a cap casualty, because he wasn't a free agent, he got cut. They had to pay Aaron Rodgers, and they were hoping to pay Devontae Adams, but we saw what that happened with that. But so they couldn't afford his contract anymore. So even since that rumor before he was even cut, I was like, oh, there's a potential for a reunion, because I loved Za'Darius Smith. He played really well for us. We drafted him after we lost Pernell McPhee, and he fit in right away. He looked just like Pernell McPhee, his size, his build. My gym working out, and I saw the signing. I screamed. I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah, right.
And then the next day, my dreams were crushed.
That was a bummer. And that kind of put a sour taste in my mouth with Michael Pierce, right? So 3 years, $16.5 million, $6.5 million guaranteed. So not a whole lot of guaranteed money. He struggled last year with injury. He was out for 7 weeks with a tricep injury, and then he missed 2 games for a non-COVID related illness, which I guess I have to emphasize this for like anyone who's evaluating the NFL during the time period from 2020 to 2022. That's probably, that phrase is going to be in there, and then like 2025 and after, you won't see it anymore. You know what I mean? Like, just
say illness.
Yeah, right. Exactly. This is what it used to say, right? But now this particular period in history, it's non-COVID related illness, and it's like, oh, interesting. There's a distinction there, so it's just kind of interesting. I laughed at that. He played his first 4 seasons with the Ravens, so he's another guy similar to Za'Darius Smith in a way. He used to play for us. Now he's coming back. He's had weight problems in the past. There's a story about John Harbaugh kicking him out of practice because he came in and he weighed like 390 pounds or something crazy like that. And he was like, absolutely no way. We're not, like, what the fuck are you doing? So I don't know. It's not Za'Darius Smith. And I think that's why it puts kind of a sour taste in my mouth. I like his ability. I think he's a good pass rusher, which is something that the defensive line needs. And he can run block. Like he can stop the run. So but it's health, durability. I have question marks with that. And, hopefully he can keep his weight down after the injury, because we've seen with athletes when they get injured, their weight sometimes balloons and it takes them longer to get back into shape. But I don't know, man. What do you think?
And I remember his rookie season, preseason, like he had like forced fumbles in one game. Like on the last preseason game, he had a forced fumble. He had a fumble recovery. He had a couple sacks. Like he balled out to make the team as a undrafted player. And then, and he played really well. Like you said, he was a great run blocker. And he was a great pass rusher too. He made plays a lot. And then I forgot about that until you mentioned that his last year with us, he showed up at camp overweight. And he did. And then he had a great year, and that's how he got that contract for the Vikings. But since then, so I believe he's only been gone for 3 years or so. 2 or 3 years, because the first year COVID happened and he was one of the very few people, and I assume it was because of his weight issues, that he opted out the first COVID season. So he was one of the very few players to opt out the whole season. So he didn't play the whole first season with the Vikings. And then he came back last year. And, he was injured a lot. He didn't play that many. So he hasn't played much in 2 years since he's been gone from us. So I'm hoping that he can get back on track with us. I think he will, because, the coaching staff got him to where he was before he made that money with the Vikings. And he played really well with us. So now, and with Brandon Williams potentially not coming back, he fits in pretty well with these 2 young defensive tackles we have, and I wouldn't be surprised if we draft somebody. And there's a lot of good D tackles in the draft this year. I think it's more of a depth piece to replace Brandon Williams, and I think we still draft somebody. But I don't hate it.
I don't necessarily hate it. It's just not my favorite one, right?
Sure,
$6.5 million guaranteed. That's not too bad for getting a guy that used to be in your building. He's coming back. He's a replacement for Brandon Williams, which I think is huge, because I think he's going to be on the move here sooner than later. And you need to address it. Why not address it with a relatively cheap contract, I think, all things concerned. It's just the durability stuff kind of concerns me. Like, it's interesting that you said that he's sort of like a prisoner of the moment, right? Like with COVID, a lot of these guys opted out, and it's sort of like a lost season where, you don't really know what you're going to get when a guy comes back, right? Maybe he's better because he's got more rest, or maybe, he's a little rusty and he's got to knock some of that off. But I don't know. I don't. It's not that I hate it. It's not, I don't look at that contract and I don't look at the player and I think to myself, oh my God, like what the hell are the Ravens doing? It's just not with Zadarius Smith with us whiffing on him. It just kind of seems like I'm comparing what could have been to what is.
Yeah, I agree. I would have rather had Zadarius Smith.
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of Ravens fans feel the same way about that. Can we get to the Deshaun Watson stuff? Let's do AFC North news because there's a lot of stuff. And this is a fascinating topic because there's a lot going on with this story. And Ravens fans, it does affect us. And I actually, really quick, to all the people who watched our video from the places we were posting up, thank you so much. I hope you come back. We're learning and we just want to provide you guys with the best Ravens content out there that we can. So Thank you so much for watching our video. We really appreciate that. We covered the AFC North news. So this is massive, man. And this is all Kirk Cousins' fault. By the way, that bum Kirk Cousins with his fully guaranteed contract that he got, and now Watson gets one for $230 million. Unbelievable. So the story basically unfolds like there was a leak from the Cleveland Browns saying that they were shopping around for Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson had like 5 teams. I know the Saints and the Falcons were involved. The Browns were involved. Who else? Carolina. He went and visited Carolina. That's right. So a lot of teams were involved in this Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. It leaked out that they were looking at him, and Baker Mayfield kind of threw a hissy fit, right? He sort of said, like, I can't believe you guys. And by the way, I'm going to make an argument for Baker Mayfield, right? He did play injured for them last year, and he struggled through it, and he went out there, and he gutted it out. This is a guy who, prior to him showing up, the likes of Deshaun Kaiser and some of these other guys that the Browns had, the Browns were
Johnny Manziel,
dumpster fire, absolute dumpster fire. Baker Mayfield shows up and they turn into a somewhat competent organization.
Yeah,
I think that's safe to say, right?
They won their first playoff game in I don't know how many years.
We were like Asher's age, I think, the last time that happened. Baker Mayfield goes out and he puts out this thing to the people of Cleveland, and he says, oh, you guys are the best. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I just want to let you know that you've embraced my wife and I, and we just really appreciate, we love you all, and this and that, right? Then he requests a trade. And the Browns, because the Browns apparently they weren't in on Deshaun Watson, and there were reports that were saying, no, there's no way he's going to go there. He's narrowed it down to the Saints and the Falcons. Which
he called them and said, nah, you guys are out of the running.
Right. And which, by the way, the Saints-Falcons thing would have been fascinating because those two teams fucking hate each other. It's not the same rivalry as the Ravens-Steelers, but Saints-Falcons, there is like no love lost there. There's a great documentary on it, actually, that I watched recently, and it was fascinating. Maybe I'll leave the link in the description so y'all can watch it. It's on YouTube. It's really good. Turns out the Browns are the ones that Deshaun Watson ended up picking, and now he's in the AFC North with a fully guaranteed contract. It was interesting, some of the stuff that was leaking out. And now I imagine, obviously, Baker's on the move because they also signed Jacoby Brissett to a backup quarterback deal. Locking up a backup is a solid move in free agency, regardless.
Especially since Watson is potentially going to be suspended for a while.
Right. So there's this layer to it as well. So we imagine Baker requested a trade, and the Browns were like, nope, we're not going to trade you. And then they finally finalized the Deshaun Watson stuff, and now Baker's definitely going to be on the move. Yeah. I imagine he's going to go somewhere. But this is it's sort of a weird story because he may be suspended by the NFL. We were talking about it, and we were wondering, like, because there wasn't anything found out with the criminal cases, and now that it's gone over to a civil suit, it seems like the NFL is interested to see what's going to happen with these civil suits.
Sure.
And where the facts sort of steer their decision-making. when it comes to their independent investigation. So if they're talking this way, they at least have suspension in mind for him for the first year. And like we were talking about, the first year of his deal is only worth $1 million. So he doesn't lose a lot of that $230 million guaranteed. Mm-hmm. So that's basically, and then on top of that, you have all these women who, if something did happen, because I feel like there was some sort of impropriety going on with this stuff. It's hilarious. The Browns leaked, we're looking for a quarterback more mature than Baker Mayfield. And it's like, so you decided on Deshaun Watson? Like, come on, you got to do better than that, right? The women aspect of this too, where like, I want to see justice served. If these women if something did happen with them, that needs to be taken into consideration. This is a huge risk for the Browns. But on the other hand, they may have just gotten their quarterback for the next 15 years. It's a very bizarre situation, really. Like, What did you think when the news was coming out? I thought it was just so strange.
I mean, we were the whole past year we were in limbo about what Deshaun Watson, what's going to happen to him. He's one of the, up and coming stars of the position. Ever since he got drafted out of Clemson, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. When Hopkins gets traded, you see Deshaun Watson is unhappy with the foundation of Houston in general. So he's like, I want out of here. They just signed him to a huge contract, but he's like, no, I'm not playing no more. I'm out. And then, coincidentally, not a month or two later after he's announcing that he wants out of Houston, all these sexual allegations come out. And then people are just like, what the hell is going on? So, ends up being 22 women accusing him of sexual assault, massage stuff, massage therapists, a lot of the girls. So for the whole past year, he didn't play at all last year. He was on Houston's team making the money that he made. He didn't play at all. They never dressed him. And the NFL, from their point of view, they're just waiting for the legal process to play out. Before the sexual allegations came out, Houston was like, we will only trade Watson if we get 3 first-round picks or more. And teams are like, fuck yeah, franchise quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And you give up shit like that for, to guarantee you for 10, 15 years down the road that you're going to have your franchise quarterback. There's teams, the Cleveland Browns are a great example of how shitty 15 years of not having a quarterback can be for a team. You're willing to give up as much as you need to get that franchise quarterback. So there was a lot of teams involved before the allegations came out, but all that was put on hold because of the allegations. Obviously, you want to listen to these women. And once that news came out there, he wasn't facing any criminal charges. It was all bets are back on. They were calling Houston up again, be like, hey, you still want 3 first-round picks?
People are saying, oh, well, criminal charges are gone, so obviously he's in the clear. He's not in the clear.
I really hope that these women get what they deserve if everything they're saying is true. He got to choose between these 5 teams where he wanted to go. He got to take his time about it. And then they give him $230 million guaranteed. That's the biggest contract known to the NFL at this point. That has never happened before. And if you're these 22 women and you're seeing this happen, you're like, damn, it's tough. I don't want to talk too much about it, to be honest, because it's like, it's a shitty situation.
100%.
This guy being accused of all this bad stuff.
But if there is something that was going on, you have to keep that in the back of your mind too. And a lot of these teams are willing, and the Browns being the most desperate of them all. Yep. This was really if we are doing this, we are fucking doing this, and we are not looking back from that. Because they knew that Baker, according to them, Baker was not the answer, right? Yep. Whatever you say about that. And it was interesting as this story unfolded, we thought that he had moved on from Cleveland and that they were out of consideration. And they just completely...
Just 12 hours before, he called them and said, you're not in the running anymore.
Yeah, and exploded that organization potentially, because now you're stuck with a quarterback who doesn't want to be there. It almost makes me wonder if Deshaun Watson kind of looked at the destruction he caused in Cleveland and was like, okay, well, if you're paying me this huge contract, that's what I'm saying. To put the fires out.
I wonder what what their second offer, he was like, nah, you guys aren't in the running anymore. I imagine that they upped that contract to try to get him back. They obviously kept in touch with Deshaun Watson's agent, and they stayed in his ear in that 12-hour period or however long that period was. And they're like, hey, we're willing to up something to get him to come back here. Because obviously, out of the four teams, I was saying 5 teams earlier because I was including Houston, but he didn't want to be there anyway.
Right.
Out of the 4 teams vying for his talents, Cleveland has the best roster. So that's why from the get-go, when I found out Cleveland was interested, I was like, oh, it's obvious he's going to go to Cleveland because they have the better roster. But then when he told them that, no, they weren't in the running anymore, I was like, oh, that's surprising.
I think he went the Kirk Cousins route. I said he probably got offered $230 million total, but how much of it was guaranteed? Because we're going to see now with these quarterbacks, mark my words, these are going to be guaranteed money contracts now. Kirk Cousins set the standard of getting fully guaranteed money. It's a situation where Cleveland was like, look, we're willing to, if this is the limit that we're willing to pay, we can make all of that money guaranteed. And that, to me, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm going, okay, yeah, let's fucking do it. Because how many other organizations are desperate enough to have not only $230 million that they're offering up to you, but you're replacing the number 1 overall draft pick in 2018. They signed Jacoby Brissett, so you know that Baker Mayfield's not going to be there. At first, I was thinking, man, if you're Baker, holy shit, like, talk about something completely demoralizing. Is he going to sit out this year, like, and agree not to play with him? I don't think that would have been the right answer. I think the answer, if they didn't get Deshaun Watson, the answer for Baker Mayfield is just to ball out and get your money. But that carries a risk because if the Browns still weren't sold on him, they would have just franchise tagged him. And that would have been that, right? Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of feel bad for Baker Mayfield, but at the same time, there's like decent arguments to be made against him, right? He's never had a season where he's thrown for over 4,000 yards with the Browns. Not one. Now, Lamar,
they're a rushing offense.
True, that's true. And Lamar, people could say, "Oh, well, what about Lamar Jackson? You big Baltimore Ravens lover, like you don't want to talk about his numbers." And it's like, yeah, okay, but when did Baker Mayfield throw for 33 touchdowns and 6 interceptions?
Right.
I don't think that ever happened in his career. So at least there's a little bit of a precedent with Lamar. And speaking of Lamar, with the Deshaun Watson stuff going on now, Lamar's got to be looking around and saying, Deshaun Watson, who for a few years with the Texans, they had Deshaun Watson and they were still bad. Deshaun Watson made that team a lot better, but it's not like they were blowing the doors off anybody. Better team in Baltimore. But at the same time, like Lamar went 8-3 last year before he got hurt. Where's his money? What's his contract going to look like?
Back to the Baker thing. Obviously, Deshaun Watson's a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. Obvious.
Yes.
The Browns wanting to test to see if they can get him. I mean, I don't see the fault in that. I mean, no. Your goal as an organization is to better your team. If an elite quarterback is on the market, you consider it. Sure, Baker made them the best they've been in a long time. But he wasn't going to be the long-term answer, in my opinion. I was loving it, man. I was like, typical Browns, yes.
I know that's what I'm thinking.
4 o'clock runs around on Friday afternoon. And then all of a sudden,
completely out of my sails.
Yeah, dude. Exactly. All of a sudden, Deshaun Watson accepts the Browns' offer. I'm like, what the hell's going on, man?
And now the Browns look way better. They look way better in the situation because if they hadn't before, I love – the stories before Deshaun signed were absolutely hilarious, right? So, they were like, well, we wanted to hop on a plane and fly out to talk to Baker about it, but Baker just, he wasn't having it, so we'll see you at OTAs. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe that they fucked this up, right? I
dumpster fire is what I was thinking.
Him. And it makes me wonder, maybe Deshaun was like, oh shit, I just, blew up the city of Cleveland. Maybe I should just go there and, because of all the organizations you could have done that to, imagine Andrew Berry being on the phone with his agent and being like, do you know what you've done? We have gone so long and we have been piss poor for the longest time. And you just made things 10 times worse. Yeah. It's in my head, I always think Deshaun Watson, it was a pity signing because he felt bad for damn near blowing up half of Ohio with that news.
Unlike Deshaun Watson's situation, Baker won't have a say where he gets traded to, especially since there's hard feelings right now. I doubt the Browns are like, Baker, we want to mend this relationship, and you get to pick where you get traded. No. Cleveland Browns, after the haul they just paid up for Deshaun Watson, 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick next year, and a fourth-round pick, they need some picks back. So they're going to give Baker to whoever is going to pay up the most. And I think Indy is a good spot, is a potential landing spot, and potentially Seattle.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Baker's better than Drew Lock.
Yes.
So
he is better than Drew Lock. It's so hard because you judge quarterbacks by whether they can get you to the Super Bowl or not. And I've been a lot more. You and Brad are brutal on Baker Mayfield. Brutal. You're like, this guy stinks. You feel the way about Baker Mayfield the way I feel about Kirk Cousins. And I should care more about Baker Mayfield because he was in my division.
I think it's more that he was on the Browns. It's not necessarily Baker. It's that he's a Browns and he was picked over Lamar. And you don't need an elite quarterback a lot of times. Sometimes a really, 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 really good coach and a really, really, really good scheme can get you to the Super Bowl. I mean, prime example is Jimmy Garoppolo, Jared Goff, Trent Dilfer with the Ravens.
He's probably like the most famous example, right? I mean,
exactly.
I think with the Bears, there was that Rex Grossman.
Rex Grossman with the Bears.
They had a great defense and Devin Hester, though. So, let's be real for a second.
In a really good situation, Baker can take a team to the Super Bowl. Well, you wouldn't say Baker took him to the Super Bowl. You'd be like, Baker's a great compliment to this scheme.
Do I think that a lot of the things that people say about him are true? I think there's some truth to that. I think Baker Mayfield has sort of this, a chip on his shoulder that comes off as immaturity for sure. But I think the Browns, I think they're in a great spot to deal Baker. It's kind of like Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Where San Francisco's willing to hold on to Jimmy because they're just waiting on a team desperate enough to go. They know that somebody is going to take a leap on him, and they don't have to wait, or they're going to make teams wait, I should say, towards the end of free agency because there's no real. They've got their guy in Deshaun Watson now. They can take their time and really shop Baker Mayfield out, and I think there's going to be a market for this guy. I don't think he's as bad as people make him out to be on the field. And he was hurt last year. He was.
He'll be. I mean, he's a starter caliber quarterback. He's a top
for sure.
He's a top 32 quarterback in the league.
Oh, man, him with Pete Carroll.
That could be a good fit.
How worried are you about Deshaun Watson being the starting quarterback?
I'm a little worried. I mean, he's an elite talent. In the last 3 years, Cleveland has built a better team than Watson had in Houston. So he's coming to a better team. So an elite quarterback with a better overall team spells problems, you know? I don't think he's better than Lamar Jackson. I mean, they played us pretty well in the last 2 or 3 years with a good quarterback in Baker. So it makes them better. So
for sure.
So I don't like it. But I'm not like 10, scared of shaking my boots.
Their odds jumped to win a lot of people have them now picking them to win the AFC North. But then again, those same people picked them to win the Super Bowl last year. And
exactly.
Look how that ended up. So,
yeah. So
I don't know.
It's going to make for a lot of good games, man.
Yes.
2 games against Joe Burrow, 2 games against Deshaun Watson. If he's not suspended, we'll see how that plays out. And then you have Mitchell Chabiski and Steelers.
Hey, so real quick, what do you think about that? That's a very interesting. So a lot of people are saying that that's a good move for the Steelers with Mitch Trubisky. I don't know. So he had in Chicago a guy who recently got fired as his head coach. He goes to Buffalo and positive reviews for Mitch Trubisky as a backup quarterback. And now he's getting a shot with the Steelers for at least 2 years. There are a lot of people, and I'm sure I have another podcast, Chi-Town and Charm City, that we promote here on Squawk, and his that's basically a Bears podcast that I do with my friend. And he, with Mitch Trubisky, he has his own feelings about it, but his big complaint was about the coach and the general manager and the organizational structure over there in Chicago. And it had less to do with Mitch Trubisky. So I don't really know, man. I don't know if that's a good pickup for the Steelers or not. I mean, he's better than Mason Rudolph.
He would have better success with Steelers if he ends up being the starter, obviously, than the Bears than when he played with the Bears. This first year without Big Ben, they're going to be at the bottom of the division, especially now that Watson's at Cleveland.
Yeah.
We also didn't talk about Amari Cooper going to the Browns. They gained Amari Cooper. They lost Landry. But now Deshaun Watson and with Amari Cooper, that's a great connection to have.
A couple weeks ago, you asked me if there was a person that I think the Ravens should go after. And I didn't have an answer for you at the time because I kind of wanted to see how the market would shake out. Like I kind of wanted to see what was going to transpire. I didn't really have a good answer for you. I think the Ravens should get Jarvis Landry on this roster. I really believe that would be a very positive figure in the locker room. His numbers don't blow you away from last year. I think he was dealing with an injury. He didn't get 600 receiving yards, but the guy is a locker room force. I remember watching him in his speech on Hard Knocks. He basically says, like, if you're good to go and your leg isn't fucking falling off your body, you should be at practice getting better because that's how you get great. And that shit needs to stop. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of dude in a locker room where you have a really young Rashad Bateman, who's probably going to be a stud, but I would like him to have a mentor. You've got Hollywood Brown, who I talked about Hollywood Brown on this podcast. And you have a bunch of other dudes like who are kind of young. It's a young receiving core. We don't know if Sammy Watkins is going to be there or not. But Jarvis Landry would be awesome for Lamar. I think it'd be awesome for his growth, his development. He'd hold the wide receivers to task. Like, that's a dude that I would love. If we could get him on a cheap deal, I don't know whether we can. I think he's 29 or 30. Yeah. But he's bounced around all over the league. Would you be interested? That's just sort of like an off the wall. I know we have other needs. I know we need to work on the pass rush. I know we need to work on the offensive line. I know all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And we need to get a Lamar contract done. But Jarvis Landry in that wide receiver room, he'd be great for any wide receiver room, really. But I really think he could find a nice home in Baltimore where he could really influence those guys, I think.
I wouldn't hate it. I think we need that. I really do. You know, you got Mark Andrews, who's one of the best tight ends, and he's our number one target. But you got these two younger receivers, Rashad Bateman being, average size, 6 foot. You got Hollywood, who's undersized. I mean, at least, Tariq Hill has a little, beef to him. He's short, but he's a little stockier than. I'm really mad that the Boykin thing didn't work out because he's big and he's, we need somebody like that. And not that Landry's a big guy, but he's a proven, possession-like receiver, great route runner who can, get those third downs and play all over the field. And I think we need that kind of guy. He's the best available, in my opinion.
For sure. And I believe Allen Robinson went to the Rams. Robert Woods he's moved on. He's going to the Titans, I think.
Yeah, he got traded. So, they signed Allen Robinson. They traded Woods to the Titans.
We should have got
Woods would have been a great guy to have.
Yeah.
100%. Like, Woods would have been perfect.
Yeah, and we talked about that in one of the previous pods. I was like, ooh, right.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But he goes to the Titans. That stinker.
Yeah.
All right, well, whatever.
I don't know. Yeah. Outside of a trade for somebody, Landry is our best bet right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I wouldn't complain if the price was right.
Yeah. I guess I'll take Sammy Watkins for another year if we had to. But.
Right. They just need that guy, a veteran wide receiver, big body, can go up and get the ball in the end zone. If you're new to this podcast, there's a few things you should know. Okay? Like, I need a new chair, and Hollywood Brown I'm out on. I'm out. You can try and convince me. I've seen enough. I've seen tape. I've seen enough. So
I don't get it. I don't get it, but I don't agree with you, but
that's okay. I let the tape speak for itself. And the tape tells me I can't.
I have a 1,000-yard receiver last year and had like 6 touchdowns.
Yeah, but here's the problem. He's driving with Lamar to the stadium only an hour before the game. Learn that on the shot with LeBron. I don't like that. You got to be there 3 hours early. And that's what LeBron told Lamar too. He's like, "Oh yeah, man, I'm there super early." And Lamar was like, "Oh, me and Holly would roll up like an hour before. And LeBron was like, what, do you wear your pads in the car and you guys just get out and you run onto the field? Is that what we're doing down here? No. I want a more tidy or less tardy wide receiver for Lamar to get rides to the game. That's my opinion. That's just my opinion. I learned a lot about the shop.
Maybe, I mean, hopefully Rashad is that guy next year, and then this is all a moot point.
True. Yeah, I know. I'm just talking in the present, obviously, but come on.
I think he can be.
Yeah, no, Rashad Bateman, I'm very high on. I just would like it if there was a guy like Jarvis Landry who could kind of like
groom.
Yeah, take him under his wing a little bit. Teach him how shit's done. You know what I'm saying? So, and he wanted to stay in Cleveland, by the way. Jarvis Landry, he wanted to work out a deal, but the numbers weren't right. So maybe
he asked for a trade.
The previous articles that had come out said, I want to work a deal out with the Browns, but that negotiating period happened. They got Amari Cooper, and then he asked for a trade.
Oh, I gotcha.
So that's how that works.
I gotcha.
Which makes sense. But so he's on the market. If I had to pick a guy, I would like Jarvis Landry. I know it's not a huge need of ours. I just really like guys who are good in the locker room. Like I like guys who kick other guys' ass and make them better players.
Yeah.
That's why.
That's why I hope we get Campbell back because we
sure.
I mean, I felt, and I was happy. Like I felt like Zadarius Smith could have been that guy, but now that he's not there, that really chaps my ass.
Agreed. I was so bummed about it. I'm like, damn, this guy would be awesome to bring back. Other news. Eric Tomlinson got moved.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about him.
Where did he go?
He got signed by Denver for a year.
Oh, good for him. Maybe another tight end that we might see out and about. Hayden Hurst also got picked up from Atlanta.
He replaced what's his name for Cincinnati?
Uzama.
Uzama went to I want to say the Jets.
Yeah, he went to the Jets because the Jets
and then Hayden Hurst is going to get potentially his starting chance. So that's cool to hear. But unfortunately, it's against our division rival. But
that's why I brought it up because I was like, damn, now we're going to see Hayden Hurst again, and he's going to be Joe Burrow's going to be throwing him the ball. Little fucking stinker. They went out and they drafted Kyle Pitts, but the year before that, I actually thought that Hayden Hurst was a nice little. Him and Matt Ryan had something going on. When I would watch Falcons games, I would see like how that relationship sort of developed, and it was Matt Ryan was getting him the ball. Obviously, the results didn't pan out that way for Atlanta, but so he's going to be back in the division. Any moves that you're kind of surprised haven't gotten done yet, like Brandon Williams?
I'm not too surprised from our free agent people that are still available. I guess Calais Campbell I'm kind of surprised about. I'm surprised he showed he still has some juice left of him, and he's a great locker room guy. I guess Sean Elliott too I'm a little surprised, maybe because of his injury.
I think his injury history is warding people off.
AFC West is going to be crazy.
You talk about a nuclear arms race, dude. Holy shit. Russell Wilson to the Broncos, and now you've got the best wide receiver in football, arguably, going to the Raiders to play with his old college buddy. Good for Derek Carr. Talk about Derek Carr somehow getting him out of Green Bay and away from Aaron Rodgers. Low-key power move there from Derek Carr.
Definitely. Out of those average, good quarterbacks, he's at like the top tier of that.
Is he better than Baker Mayfield?
He's better than Baker Mayfield. He's better than Kirk Cousins.
Yes, he is better than Kirk Cousins. You're right, Chad.
So him with one of the best receivers in the game, who he already has years of experience with, that they work out together in the offseason, that really puts them on the map after Russell Wilson going to Denver. I was thinking, damn, Vegas is going to be at the bottom of the division, but this move really brings them back up there, in my opinion.
And then you talked about it earlier too, Juju Smith-Schuster going over the Chiefs on a short-term little deal there too. I mean, it's just like an arms race in the AFC West right now. It's wild to watch.
You got all four of those teams in the West. You got the Bills, you got the Ravens, you got Cincinnati,
the Patriots.
Now you get the Browns, and you got the Patriots.
Oh my God.
That's like That's like 8 or 9 teams playing for 7 playoff spots. 2 of these quarterbacks are not going to make the playoffs next year in the AFC. You got Patrick Mahomes, you got Justin Herbert, you got Russell Wilson, you got Derek Carr, you got Lamar Jackson, you got Joe Burrow, you got Deshaun Watson, Mac Jones. He played decent as a rookie. Tennessee was the number 1 seed last year, so you can throw them in there, obviously.
Right. And then the Dolphins showed a lot of pop towards the end of the season. I don't know if that's going to be a repeat now that B-Flow's gone.
I didn't even mention Josh Allen. Shit.
Yeah, Josh Allen's in there too.
So that's 9 teams.
Yeah.
Playing for 7 spots.
Wild, man.
And that's crazy.
Yeah, but you know what? That's why we love this sport, right? Because I can make an argument constructively for every single team. And listen, the Raiders made the playoffs last year. Everyone's talking about the Raiders like they're chopped liver. And it's like, they're good enough to compete for a spot in a season where the turmoil that happened, they were playing with an interim head coach and they were able to sneak into the playoffs. It's not like the Raiders are going to be walked all over, I don't think.
And their star receiver was in a DUI crash.
And that's another thing I wanted to talk about. Talk about like Henry Ruggs to Devontae Adams and how that transpired. If you gave a grade to the Ravens right now as of March 20th, 2022, what kind of grade would you give them for the moves that they've made so far?
I'd say that's an A. I mean, I'm biased, but
I don't think so, though, man.
You don't want to overpay,
right?
And you want to address needs that you need. And I think all 3 of these signings check off both of those boxes.
I got it at an A- just because of this.
And it made the team younger.
And better. Our roster is better. It is better, period. Marcus Williams alone makes our roster better. 2019, we were getting all these turnovers and was setting Lamar up in perfect field position. It's how we generate a lot of our points.
That first preseason game against the Saints, I think we forced like 5 interceptions.
Yeah.
And I was like, same old defense, killing it. But it didn't turn out that way.
Do you have anything else? I mean, before we say goodbye to the people?
No, I mean, we covered a lot of things. A lot of stuff, a lot of moving parts, and I'm sure there's more to come. There's still a lot of free agent guy. I mean, Odell Beckham, Tyrann Mathieu, Terrell Armstead, who's, a really good offensive tackle still available, Stephon Gilmore. So there's still a lot of players that haven't signed that are going to be signing in the coming weeks. And then, you got draft season coming up. So that's cool.
Yeah, I know. It's rapidly approaching. We're like a month and a week away from the draft, roughly, right? Something like that. 28th of April. So we have 10 draft picks. I can't wait to see what we do with them. So far, free agency's gone off with a bang. I give them an A-. It's gone great. And there's going to be a lot of negativity. I've seen a lot of negativity with some of these picks. And I'm just like, guys, it's chess, not checkers. There's a specific need that's being addressed. And I love every single one, I think, has been spot on for this team. So Good job, Eric DaCosta. You're knocking it out of the park so far. Let's see what next week has in store, right? I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great. Chad, it was awesome talking to you again. This was great, as always. You got any? Well, I guess today's Sunday, so you don't have any other plans, right?
Just chilling with the fam. Gonna go for a walk, hang out, watch a movie maybe.
I think I'm gonna go on a run.
Get a run in, baby.
Hey, thank you for all the new listeners. Again, we really appreciate it. We're new on the scene, and we're trying to just follow the team that we love and that you guys love. And we want to bring you the best content possible. So keep looking out for all of our videos. Chad, it was awesome talking to you. We're going to be back next week to follow some more moves around the NFL, maybe in general. We'll see you all next week. Caw-caw, everybody.
Oh, great talking to you, Ben. Peace.
Yes, sir. As always, dude. As always.
And the pain coming from my bones.